Episode 5. Underwater. Father taught that fear was a gift, something one wasn't supposed to run from. It cleared the mind of unnecessary sinful thoughts, it rid one of the need for idle reasoning and the search for false conclusions. And, if the veil of fear was thick enough, faith would indeed be blind. Audrey was an obedient child and was terrified throughout her childhood, thus expressing her devotion to the cult. And as soon as her father appeared to her in her dream, the faith that had been long suppressed under the weight of time flared up again. It burned even brighter to illuminate the way to the beast that awaited her at the end of her nightmare. The dream dissolved without a trace in the morning light, but Audrey could have sworn that they had truly met. The proof was in the delicate, thin streak of gray shimmering in her hair, a gift that the morning light had no power to dissolve. What kind of fear must you experience to wake up with a streak of gray hair? Ah, so you've turned into Rogue, quintessentially. Audrey stared at herself in the mirror in confusion. She recalled her father's distant words stuck in her childhood. If he now prayed to the beast, then her reaction to their meeting would surely have pleased him. Perfect, unspeakable terror. Audrey suddenly felt empty. It was as if all the emotion she was capable of had been consumed by the night. Her apathy was replaced by a fanciful stubbornness, desire to detach herself from what had happened. Audrey was eager and relieved to give in to that weakness. As she decided to simply erase the mark of the nightmare from herself, she would not mention the troubling subject to anyone. She ordered her hair dye and began to wait for the easiest problem-solving of her life. I would have kept it. Looks kind of nice. It was hard to tell how much time had passed, but to the tired Audrey, the wait didn't seem long. Audrey didn't run into anyone on her way to the courier. She returned to her room just as quietly and occupied her mind with the simplest of tasks. She concentrated solely on the task at hand. She showered first and then changed her clothes. Alright, so we've got simple and tasteful, capricious, broad stripes, free style, elegant stripes, get everything. I'm not gonna lie, I kinda like the simple and tasteful. Continue. Then she covered up the reminder of the horror she had experienced in her dream. But why, though? No offense, I think I'm just gonna go with, curse you. I really didn't want to... You know what, I'm just gonna go with the normal and go back to the other hairstyle we had. Hold on. Continue. And like a coward, she decided that nothing had happened. Even though we didn't get a choice in the matter. There was no father gripping her shoulder so tightly, no beast towering before her as a mass of unspeakable terror. The day had freed her from the nightmare. She threw herself eagerly into its bright, warm embrace. She forced a smile in the mirror and headed for the living room. Upon meeting with the furious insomnus evoked nothing in her this time but a slight weariness. Audrey wasn't even upset when she realized that there was no one else in the room but her superiors. Their sullen, arrogant faces were just faces. The words they spewed were just words. They posed no threat. I wonder if everyone in heaven is like them. Greet them reservedly. She nodded slightly at the space between the men and paused for a moment. Good morning. Take a seat. Your behavior is worthy of respect. Sooner or later they will acknowledge that. Oh, okay. So Mikhail told you everything? It was up to her to choose the right words, but she was tired of doing that, so Audrey decided to be blunt. If you mean about your heavenly nature, then yes, he did. Aren't you scared at all? Somnus gave her a grim, crooked smile as if to say, If you're not, I can fix that. I prefer to be glad that God exists, after all.
Did Mikhail tell you about God as well?
She stumbled and shook her head uncertainly.
I don't think you've been praying to the right one.
Furious snorted irritably into nothing, then turned his fiery gaze back on her. This idle chatter infuriates me. Understand that you're here purely by chance. Any of the 7 victims those wretches could have saved could have been in your place. And you are so unique and astonishing to our worthless subordinates because they have spent hundreds of years in isolation. An ordinary human emotion rose indignantly inside her, a sense of self-importance. There are plenty of people outside. Just step out the door. This isn't a prison. I don't think your subordinates haven't seen a woman in hundreds of years, or whatever you're implying. Furious exhaled loudly in irritation. Somnus continued the thought cold-bloodedly.
They are mortals on the other side of the door, girl. Even the thought of a connection with a human is laughable to us. And an equal being simply haven't visited them.
Somnus resorted to a metaphor to illustrate the point.
Their attachment to you is like an attachment to a puppy left on their doorstep.
Have you asked them that? No? Okay.
No one would intentionally look for it on the street, but out of the goodness of their hearts, they open the door and let you in. Of course, they were presented with the finest specimen of its kind. You'd be a fool to not accept the obvious.
Oh! Shh, listen, that's kind of like a compliment. He said I'm the highest specimen.
But only of its kind. You have managed to make them forget what you really are. It's surprising, but it's true.
And as for Raphael thinking you could influence the outcome, that remains to be proven. I do not believe you are capable of giving the beast anything other than your life.
Of course, you may have been misled by some of our protégés' actions, but do not be mistaken about them. Someone like David wouldn't hesitate to break another's neck. Yes, he'll kill anyone, as anyone in this house would, but he won't kill for you. He'll kill for what he thinks is his.
Really? He seemed to kill a lot of people when he found out that I was hurt.
It's just greed and an inability to control himself.
But it's never too late to educate him. I'll take care of that. Somnus smiled dreamily as if he wanted to participate in the training process himself. He drawled lazily.
Yes, mad dogs need to be kept on a leash, or they'll start taking too many liberties.
I don't like these guys. Seriously, they're pretentious as shit. I'm gonna be honest, I don't believe all immortals are like this. Clearly, they've shown different. The Astrians aren't like them. If living human beings change as immortals, it's definitely for the better. The inhabitants of Astrea are much better than you think. Her quiet remark brought smiles to their faces.
What have they told you, you poor thing? I don't think who you're dreaming of, but believe me, you're not the center of this wretched place. You're a temporary, laughable, temporary refuge. And even if they do have some preserved feelings for you, well, the breath of death has deceived far wiser beings.
Death? Aren't you immortal?
Child, the stale scent of the grave surrounds Astrea. That's why its inhabitants crave life so fiercely. Fate threw you into their jaws. It threw you like a bone to a hungry dog. They don't care what animal was skinned for the occasion. They don't care what shape or substance the bone is. But if you try to take away a hungry dog's source of amusement, it'll bite your hand off without hesitation. Oh yes, everyone here is an insanely greedy, sinful creature. And if one of them wishes to possess you, it will not be a blessing, foolish child. It will be punishment.
It's time to end this conversation. Yeah, please get to the point. I'd appreciate it if you'd get to the point. Audrey ignored the ambiguous hints. She spoke with determination. I'm ready to be your ally, so why are you so stubbornly trying to write me off? Yes, it may seem insignificant to you, and maybe compared to you I am, but fate can be surprising. Even a butterfly can change the course of history, albeit by an accident. There's silence and an absence of malicious smiles. This confirmed she was on the right track. Audrey took a deep breath and continued. I'm not afraid of your white or black wings. I'm afraid of what awaits all of us. And if a battle with the beast is inevitable, isn't it better to fight together on the same side? I'm not asking for your favor or your respect. I'm asking to be allowed to stand beside you. Somna's thoughtful, slightly sleepy gaze was mesmerizing.
Perhaps you've enchanted everyone in this house with your foolish, aching resolve. Your struggle is rather pathetic, but there is something to it. Something worthy of respect. Since you like it here so much, let us continue your introduction to our world. Let's test the sincerity of your intentions.
And at the same time, let's see what David has learned from his last lesson.
And if our troublesome subordinate truly seeks redemption...
Somna's red eyes flashed unkindly. He spoke in what was almost a hiss.
I choose this task personally for you. I hope you like the sea and the mysteries hidden in its depths.
I mean, I do. I heard there's kaijus down there. David and Fell accompanied her. Audrey knew that David was probably being tested as much as she was. Literally, they just said that. But he did everything he could to pretend that nothing terrible was happening. And as soon as she brought up their relationship, he was immediately fired up and ready to fight. He disregarded the need to keep his distance. It was as if hearing the word relationship drove him wild. He was like a little kid. He couldn't hear anything else. Fell remained silent the entire time. It was clear that their encounter with the possessed girl had left its mark on her, but Audrey didn't know how to help her, no matter how much she wanted to. Their destination turned out to be a small port town. David and Fell genuinely enjoyed the vast landscape. They didn't pay much attention to what was going on around them. I wonder if there's anything like the sea where they come from. Good questions. On the picturesque shore, they were greeted by a man, a former sailor who now organized tours on various vessels. He even owned a ship that was equipped with modern amenities on the inside, but remained decrepit and old on the outside. Its wooden hull was the first thing Audrey noticed. Sharp, high masts, impeccable black sails, a true pirate's gem. The story itself added such a romantic mystery to the place. One ship didn't return from its voyage in full. Or rather, it was to be towed back home alone, abandoned by its guests and crew under unexplained circumstances. A ghost ship. The man kept shrugging apologetically as he told his story. It was only a matter of time before lawsuits from the relatives of the missing would start pouring in. He could be saved from fines by previously signed documents that freed him from the responsibility, but what could restore the reputation of a man who lost a group of tourists at sea? Despite all the hardships that had befallen him, his voice remained firm. It was the voice of a real, old-school sailor. It was used to argue with the raging elements who, of course, didn't care about the character of one who dared to challenge them.
The ship was drifting in open water. God knows where she was pushed back from. The first mate and I went aboard, but there was no soul there. Generally speaking, this isn't the first story of its kind. The question is, what exactly does Somnus plan to scare me with? It wasn't a scare, it's a test. Tell me about the clues on board. I'm assuming we only get one, as always, but if we get all three, that's awesome.
Did the police inspect the ship?
Of course. Their conclusion is that it was an accident. The ship got caught in bad weather and people fell overboard.
All of them?
One person fell first and the others jumped in to help.
Was your team so incompetent that they would just dive in after each other?
That's what the police think.
What do you think?
I'm convinced otherwise. Even the life buoys are still in place. I think I cursed the ship.
The frank confession was hard for him. The man slumped guiltily. Cursed? How?
I renamed her when I divorced my wife. Our paths diverged too painfully. The ship used to be called Madison.
And now? The man blushed and said after a beat,
Heartbreaker.
Oh, well that's fun. I'd like to see it with my own eyes, please.
Take a look, then. The police didn't consider the ship a crime scene or anything like that, so they returned her to me.
The invitation sent a shiver down Audrey's spine. She both feared and longed to board, to see the cursed ship with her own eyes.
Since it's back in your possession, maybe we could retrace the route the crew took. If you don't mind spending a few hours on her, why not?
The man gestured for everyone to follow him.
In that case, I'll be your captain for the day. Welcome aboard, everyone.
I always liked the idea of setting course across the world and exploring it, but I was born too late for that, and too early to explore the stars. The sea breathed deeply and calmly. It gently nudged the ship from side to side like a caring mother rocking her baby's cradle. Its soft whisper tempted Audrey with sleep. She wanted to wrap herself in the dark surface of the water like a blanket and drift away. How can something so beautiful be so terrifyingly dangerous? I mean, that's life, that's love, that's everything. Seriously, think about it. I'll leave the beautiful view to the ladies and go below deck. David, headed for the cabin, moved slowly towards the ship's railing. Where should I go? Go down and talk to David. Audrey stepped carefully down the creaky wooden steps, ducking her head to avoid hitting the low ceiling. The cabin was dimly lit. David rummaged through the shelves without much enthusiasm and finding nothing of interest. On the table lay a journal. The last entry was cut off mid-sentence. Next to it stood a half-finished cup of tea with a small circle of mold on the surface. The image of frozen time was eerie. Audrey spoke up to distract herself. Why do you think Somnus sent us here? And there's no one I can talk to as an evaluator. What can I do to help? David didn't stop searching as he examined.
They're just trying to scare you. They think you're timid.
Well, the situation is strange, of course, but it's not exactly frightening. David looked up and smiled sweetly. It's because we haven't figured out what happened yet. He obviously had many more possibilities in mind due to his extraordinary origin. Audrey, on the other hand, was only on just the beginning to expand the boundaries of her old world. What could it be?
Anything.
David, that's not like you normally, just saying. Normally he's more, what's the word? Oh, don't take offense, I'm still not used to you knowing everything. The fact that we don't have to choose our words carefully. Speaking of which... Audrey paused dramatically and then exhaled. So a demon. As real as it gets at your service. David gave her a playful bow, as if it were a fun job title and not some being her religious parents had used to scare her throughout her childhood. Well, it really suits him. He's so... I would have said something else, but sure, attractive. Like the forbidden fruit, like sin itself. I like how she bites her lips. David caught her gaze and grinned mischievously. David could read her gaze. Your relationship has improved. Cute. So, and what are you up to, demon? I'm trying to figure out where a bunch of mortals disappeared to from this little ship. But on a global scale. A hint of sadness flashed in a sly smile, but it quickly vanished. I try to live a modest life on Earth. I do not interfere with global affairs. It's a big responsibility, you know. Very big. Just look at our poor Mikhail. He used to be a handsome fellow, but his high position and the terrible responsibility have worn him down. Audrey couldn't hold back a snicker. Did he look any different before? Yes, there was a youthful spark in his eyes, and his hair lay so beautifully on his shoulders. How could he look even better? What's this? Do I hear envy? Don't be jealous, sweet Audrey. Your hair looks just as good. Well, thanks. The ship's owner joined them below deck, interrupting their conversation. Audrey hurried away. It was impossible for 3 people to move around in the cramped room. David was happy to chat with you. Your friendship has improved. Where should I go? Approach Fel. Fel was slightly hunched over, her elbows resting on the railing. She gazed into the vast distance. There was something touching about her uncharacteristic position. Her posture. It drew Audrey to her like a magnet. Luckily, we have plenty of reasons to start a conversation. Were you able to find out who Emma's father went to for her help? Belding turned to look at the evaluator standing next to her. She replied, I think you can guess. Someone I know? More? Malik. David. Why would he go to David? I'm gonna go with Moore. To Moore? What a strange guess. No. Someone I know. Okay, let me... I have to think about this one. I had to take a minute and rethink the last episode. So, it wasn't David, it wasn't Moore, because that was a really super strange comment. Malik, because if I remember, Malik did interject himself in the situation, so yeah. Yes. Our good Samaritan helped him get out of prison, and didn't charge him a cent. I guess, all he asked in return was a touching life story. Perhaps. Unexpected, but very logical thought crossed Audrey's mind. Fel, is Malik one of your kind too, an immortal? Fel pressed her lips together. She was clearly not yet used to discussing her nature so freely with mortals. There was another pause. It was one that Audrey was terribly tired of, one caused by the need to choose the right words. No, Malik isn't one of us. Neither a demon nor an angel. So he's a human. That you know of. There's plenty of supernatural creatures. In a way, it was comforting to know that not everyone around her was an all-powerful immortal. She suddenly had an overwhelming desire for Fel to feel the same way, for the wounds in her heart to heal, if only for a moment. The quiet evening provided a sense of intimacy. It seemed like the light mist over the water could easily hide any awkwardness. Audrey gathered her courage. Fel, I could talk to Mikhail, and I'll try to find out what he knows about your family. He's been very open with me lately. Fel's head twitched uncertainly, and she didn't dare turn around. She just glanced sideways at the evaluator. You don't have to, but I really want to help you. Fel finally turned around. She spoke too softly. Mikhail is following orders. If he's been able to keep quiet, it'll be difficult to get him to talk. I don't want to sound overconfident, but I think he really needs something from me too. The Somnus openly said that I'm like an aunt to all of you. I don't think he would be so eager to deal with me if I were just a failed victim. Fel fell silent again. Audrey thought she was working up the courage to accept her offer. They can take what they need by force, you understand that, right? If you resist too much, your life in Astrea will take a very different turn. The attempt to scare or warn her failed. Now that all the suspicions about Astrea had been proven unfounded, Audrey had no doubts. I'm sorry, Phil, but I don't believe that. They're truly good people. They're not people. You keep forgetting that. You know that Raphael crippled hundreds of mortals in that village, right? Yeah. Yes, but he saved me. Did you know that David came back and finished them off? This time, she couldn't respond as easily. She couldn't wrap her mind around the thought of David being a murderer. It seemed so wild that it felt almost unreal. But her feelings were stronger than her reason. Somna said that's normal for all of you. Phil gave in. It's good that it doesn't scare you. There's that. Apparently her lecture was over. Audrey shifted awkwardly from foot to foot. Time to change the subject. Do you have a big family? Have you lived among humans for long? Why can't you go back home? Have you finally mustered up the courage to ask? I mean, I asked the question, didn't I? Phil's strained smile reminded Audrey that it was none of her business. If you don't want to know, I'll tell you. In our world, I was something like a soldier, a mercenary. Call it what you want. So was my father. We both served. Was there a war? There were countless wars, but we participated in others, the kind that are not fought on the battlefield but in the shadows. I served a tyrant, a madman. I killed those who couldn't be openly killed. I hunted them like animals. I waited, lived within their walls, and struck them from behind. There was no honor in my service, only orders, and the only rule was to leave no witnesses. Phil spoke on this simply without remorse, and her calmness was terrifying. What happened to the one you served? He was overthrown. If my father and I had been on the other side, we would have been heroes. But instead, all of his followers were killed. The most valuable were imprisoned. And the most dangerous were put to sleep, so we couldn't even think of escaping. I spent thousands of years like that. When I woke up, the whole world had changed. They let you go? They made a deal with me. With me and with David. You could say we're companions in misfortune. Although he was released much earlier. What was the deal? The beast's head or ours, it's that simple. How old are they? She literally just said thousands of years, but you know, hey. Mikhail said you're facing the gallows, so he wasn't speaking metaphorically? No, it's true. But aren't you all immortal? She didn't want to give the evaluator another lecture. She tried to answer briefly. An immortal can only be killed by another mortal if they wish it. Humans, diseases, none of that can harm us. Time spent on Earth can age us, but before banning us to this hole, our kind God created Astrea. Within its walls, time truly stands still. Audrey imagined a guillotine. Her imagination vividly painted a picture of Fel with her head bowed over the wooden block. What barbarity. I took all my father's deeds upon myself. And he agreed to that so easily? It wasn't exactly easy. He had to gouge out his eyes so the judge couldn't read past his past in them. Oh, wow. Well, they say eyes are the windows to the soul, so... Wow, that really puts a spin on it, doesn't it? My God. Audrey didn't want to explore the bloody subject any further. She instinctively clung to what seemed safer. Can you read the past in someone else's eyes? Yep, all of us immortals can, so take care of them. Your windows to the soul. Aw, damn, I was onto something. There was silence. Audrey tried to figure out who was standing in front of her. Phil thought about how to continue her confession. I was released and sent to Mikhail. as if remembering something funny. Fel smiled. He wanted to wring my neck. I killed so many of his friends, whole families, but he couldn't disobey orders, our honest soldier. The only thing he refused to do was live under the same roof as me. To share a home with me. So I'd better hurry up with my mission and not linger on Earth. Fel's face actually showed bloodlust. It was deep-seated, hidden far beneath a mask of indifference. And then a long-awaited question flickered in her eyes. Basically, it was demons versus angels. Are you willing to help me now? It's just a choice of 1 and 2. Seriously, it's a choice of 1 and 2. I did think about it. I am, no matter what. I'll talk to him when we get back to Astrea, and if necessary, I'll give him an ultimatum. This is about your family. Keeping you in the dark is cruel. We've had enough cruelty. Yeah, but what about if her family's dead and that's why they keep her in the dark? Yeah, that's equally cruel, but... and enough spilling of the blood of others. Blessed innocence. No one has fought for Fel like you. She really appreciates it. As if it's in our own power to decide if this world has had enough blood. The land around us is dry. It waits for salty rain that can quench its thirst. Fel's words reminded Audrey of her dream of the bloody river. Her heart pounded in her throat, dull, fast, as if sensing its beat. Fel suddenly softened. Why are you actually helping me? Audrey thought the answer was obvious. $72 diamonds. Breaking my piggy bank, fam. That's a lot of diamonds right there, seriously. Break that down to 3 and to 72 and you get your answer. That's a lot of days of ads. You like me? Fel raised an eyebrow in surprise and looked at her with a strange new expression. You're doing all this because you're trying to win my favor. It sounded ridiculous coming from her lips. Audrey wanted to deny it immediately. I'm not trying to make you like me. I want you to be happy as much as possible. Fel clearly found no joy in her confession. At least I didn't confess my love to her. How embarrassing. Express your thoughts about her. Explain your feelings. I don't think there's a right or wrong. Express your feelings. I feel like I'm doing the Aspie test. Anyway, express your thoughts. You're much better than you want to seem. I know that. And I believe you deserve to be happy. The silence was broken only by the sound of the sea. Audrey listened to its voice. She wondered how she could slip away and leave this awkward situation behind. I like you too, Audrey. Really. The unexpected confession flashed through Audrey and filled her with a dizzying hope. You're alive. You're real. And if we'd met at another time, under another circumstance, everything could have been different. Fel was suddenly very close. Audrey hadn't even noticed the scent of the sea being replaced by a powdery fragrance. And this is all I can... Audrey didn't even have time to understand what she meant. All her thoughts were cut off by the thin fingers on the back of her head. With a single tug, Fel pulled her closer and crushed their lips together. Audrey hadn't admitted to it herself before, but now she knew for certain she had wanted this for a long time. She wanted to feel those thin, delicate fingers on her. She wanted to taste Fel's lips. She wanted to feel what Fel wanted. Audrey wanted it so badly, but the moment she got it, she felt deceived. I'm confused why you feel deceived. Pretty artwork. I mean, I guess in a way that's what we're paying for. There was no tenderness or passion in the kiss. None of the emotions that were the hardest to contain in moments like this. It felt like there was Nothing there. The only thing clearly present on Phil's soft lips was despair. Is she that afraid of getting close to someone? Audrey reached for Phil herself. She cupped Phil's face in her hands, shielding it from the whole harsh, unwelcoming world. She poured all of her gentleness and tenderness into the kiss, all of her budding feelings. As soon as Phil's hands settled timidly on her waist, she parted her lips. The wall Phil had built up for so long cracked. Desire seeped through, and she surrendered. Accepting the invitation, her tongue slipped into Audrey's parted mouth. Audrey felt herself sinking into something thick and sweet like honey. Phil kissed her deeply, slowly, her fingers sliding hard over her curves. She explored Audrey's unhurried, arousing, and emptying her at the same time. Audrey arched her back. The ship's cold railing burned her skin. Phil pressed harder. Audrey was to her taste. Both of them felt that the railing wouldn't be able to contain their growing passion much longer, and even the sea, if they were to meet, wouldn't be able to cool them down. It would be funny if we really fell overboard. Phil bit her lower lip gently. Audrey pulled her closer. And I don't care. At that moment, she really wanted to escape, and even if only the open sea could save them, Audrey didn't mind. Inside her, strong feelings raged, stronger than the waves overboard. Phil pulled away from her. She breathed into Audrey's lips so quietly, as if afraid she'd actually hear the words. This is all I can give you, as a thanks for your help. The magical moment evaporated too quickly. A hole formed in Audrey's chest, right where her heart had been beating so eagerly just moments ago. Do you think I'm helping you for this? Audrey didn't wait for an answer. Something flared up inside her. Shame, resentment. She wasn't sure. Don't, Phil. Don't do that anymore. Her voice trembled, but Audrey composed herself. If you want to run away, that's fine by me. I'll help you break free, I promise. And I don't need that kind of gratitude. A simple thank you will be enough. Her lips still burned from the kiss, but her cheeks burned even more. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. She couldn't have kissed me like that, just out of gratitude. Audrey bit the inside of her cheek, holding back the emotions that threatened to rise to the surface. She made her voice as cold as she could. Fine. Let's forget about it. Her lips trembled. She couldn't stop, just like she couldn't stop what she had a moment ago. So she simply walked away in silence, leaving Phil alone with her thoughts. Trust me, demons are very complicated. Whatever Phil has said, she won't be able to erase that kiss from her mind. She went to the other end of the ship to make herself useful somehow. She started looking around for at least something. Tired, she leaned over the railing a little and inhaled the salty sea air. Where could they have gone? Audrey tried to imagine the circumstances that would make her jump overboard. The sea began to roar louder. Its whisper was filled with anxiety. It was all as if trying to tell her the story of the cursed ship. It's like it's talking to me. Listen, step away from the railing, take a closer look, shake off the enchantment. We'll try listen. Audrey leaned over a little more and held her breath. The soothing song of the sea waves became even more enchanting. It was like the most enchanting, pleasant lullaby she had ever heard. Audrey suddenly felt an overwhelming urge to go towards the call, to dive in headfirst, to wash away all of her worries and fears. So it's kind of like a siren's call. It felt like the dark water could actually help her with them. Do I really want this? The sea is affecting me strangely, this particular area. Could the missing people have felt the same thing I'm feeling? The water suddenly seemed ominous, like it was hiding some kind of a secret. Audrey forced herself to tear her gaze away. She looked around. A shore with a hideous rock seemed unexpectedly close. The island caught her eye. It bared its teeth like shards of stone at the passing ship.
We sail this route with tourists for a reason. It's a very scenic place, isn't it?
The first mate approached soundlessly, like a ghost. He stood beside her. Audrey nodded uncertainly. She pointed to a small hollow under a rocky overhang. Is there a grotto there?
Yes, but we don't take tourists there. You have to swim underwater to get to the cave. And we don't have a license for that, and it's dangerous.
Did the police check it out?
I doubt it.
Why?
Why would they?
Well, the man didn't wait for a response. He continued his thought.
If the ship had been abandoned here, it would have likely have drifted to the rocks. In general, I think your search is pointless. The sea won't give them up.
Audrey glanced at the grotto again. For some reason, she felt an intense desire to get there. Nothing in the cabin. It took you that long to search such a small cabin, dude? David finished his work and leaned casually against the ship's railing. What are you two talking about? Doesn't that grotto look suspicious to you? David followed her gaze and shrugged. No, does it to you? Audrey listened to her feelings again. Something was pulling her there into the water irresistibly. Maybe it's a sign from above. My intuition. I mean, it could be both. I'm gonna be honest with you. She's thinking of... I mean, this one's a tough one. Because intuition, like, she pulled away, she didn't give into the thing, she's noticing the sound, she's noticing the draw. Like, it's kind of like, do you go down that dark alley or not? Like... But this is telling her that maybe they went down the dark alley with the allure of the call. So that, in a way, it's intuition. A sign from above? Maybe. I've seen stranger shit, so... I'm gonna go with a sign from above. The existence of higher powers was no longer in doubt. So maybe they actually want to help me? Honestly, it does. Can you get closer?
Fine.
While the owner and first mate discussed and changed their course, David waved Fell over. Ready for a swim? Do you feel something? No, but we can check it out. I think they might have gone into that grotto. Why? Maybe something scared them, or they decided to hide there. Or it attracted them. Fell raised an eyebrow in response. Come on, let's check it out. I've got no other ideas anyway. There are no curses here. I don't even sense the presence of anyone like us. The first mate approached them with a pile of swimsuits in his hands.
I can offer you swimsuits. You can probably didn't bring any with you.
David grimaced and stepped back dramatically. Thanks, but no, I don't think I can find anything suitable here. And we're not planning a long swim anyway. Audrey made the sensible decision to accept the offer. Fell followed suit. He's a guy. All he has to do is dive in his boxers. He's fine. I'm certainly not going to flaunt my underwear around here. Okay, what's the alternative? Fell was the first to change in the cabin. Your turn. You just had to make it black, didn't you? Before going down, Audrey couldn't help but let her gaze linger on Fell. That one-piece swimsuit hugged her slender, flawless body impressively. Oh, that's what the body of a demon, a true temptress, looks like. Bad. Bad. She said my words out loud. Anyway, Audrey suddenly realized it was so... With great clarity, if Fell used her charms, it would be hard to resist them. She could seduce anyone. Hey, Audrey. If you swear to God, if you say my eyes are up here... Audrey quickly turned away and went into the cabin. On the table next to the unfinished cup of tea were several swimsuits for her to choose from. Alright, let's see what we have here. Alright, so we've got the modest. Listen, I still accept it's black. Leave me alone. Seductress. Flirt. How did this dude get swimsuits in our sizes randomly? I'm just asking. Get everything. Listen, I still accept this. I'm actually gonna accept. It's actually really nice. It's pretty. Should I choose something else? No. There was no mirror in the cabin, no, so Audrey hoped the swimsuit fit decently as she went back upstairs. Listen, it fits just fine. It hugs all your curves. Everyone's ready. Wonderful. Guys, take lights, just in case. Who knows what we'll see underwater. The first mate had changed as well. He asked if everyone was ready. The question was mostly directed to David. Everyone stared at him expectantly. Just a second. He unbuttoned his shirt halfway in a laid-back manner, then he deftly pulled it over his head and casually tossed it onto the railing. Let's go. Oh, you're keeping the pants on. Okay. Audrey let her eyes slide curiously over his bare chest. She felt a slight pang of disappointment that he'd taken off his shirt under such unromantic circumstances. I'm sorry, what? Her gaze landed on a piercing in its unexpected spot. Very interesting. It was as if he was saying, with a sly smile, that things were about to get much more interesting. Audrey blushed and looked away. Fell noticed their playful exchange glances. She pursed her lips, but said nothing. Audrey was carried away by their flirting. She caught herself when the policewoman's expression became impenetrable. Audrey stretched just in case, loosening her muscles. I love how we get to run through the woods and swim in the sea. David was the first to jump overboard. He leaped over the metal steps that descended into the water. Soon he was shoulder-deep in the liquid darkness. He reached out and offered his hand to the ladies. Fell pointedly refused. Her entire demeanor indicated that she'd rather drown than touch this outstretched man's hand. Jesus. What a gentleman. Accept his help. There's nothing wrong with that. Audrey lowered her feet into the water. She sat on the edge and extended her hands in response. David gently squeezed her fingers and pulled her towards him. Not too fast. She had no time to feel the cold water. She was immediately enveloped by the heat of his body. David didn't miss a chance to take advantage of the dark water. He slid his hand discreetly along her waist. He squeezed her soft, yielding hips. It drove him wild and pressed close for a moment to whisper, "Let go, little witch." The first mate led the way. It's hard for David to tear himself away from you. He got slowly through the water's surface with his outstretched hands and headed for the grotto. His feet occasionally surfaced for brief moments. They splashed noisily and showered those behind him with gray droplets. Time and time again, Audrey caught herself thinking that she needed to get into that cave. It was as if a matter of life or death. Should I say something? Yes? No? Think about it some more. This one's a tough one. I'm gonna go ahead and warn them. Anna raised her head higher to avoid swallowing water. She tried to shout to those swimming nearby. Guys, I don't know why, but I really need to get into that cave. What do you mean? It's like a force is pulling me towards it. David met this statement with silence. Fell's serious voice made her tense. Stick close to me, alright? Alright. The cave was hidden under the rocky overhang. You decide to warn your team, this will affect the flood. I'll check how long we'll need to swim underwater. Trembling ripples spread out where David had just been. After a while, the water's surface calmed. Time slowed. It thickened and seemed disturbingly prolonged. Audrey stared intently into the grotto. Why is he taking so long? As if reading her thoughts, Fell reassured her. Don't worry, he can't drown. He won't drown. He swims that well? He holds his breath that well. He's a demon, he don't need to breathe. He's immortal, of course. He probably can't even suffocate. Audrey felt special, like she was in on a secret. She nodded and glanced at the first mate, but he wasn't paying attention to their chatter. If only he knew who he was swimming with so casually in the moonlight. David returned, and with him came a sense of calm. His wet curls clung to his face. He shook his head cheerfully, scattering drops of water everywhere. The swim isn't too long. Everyone can manage. Audrey took a deep, noisy breath and dove in. David and the first mate lit the way with their dim, murky light. Phil followed behind. The increased pressure seemed to make the water denser. Moving forward became more difficult. Audrey slowed down without meaning to, but Phil, swimming behind her, urged her with a barely perceptible touch. Audrey gathered all of her strength. She spread her arms wider and paddled faster, but the touch came again. Fingertips on her ankle left gentle trails that made her uneasy. Audrey turned around. She stilled in the waters suspended in jelly and took a closer look around. The water column playfully concealed her mischievous pursuer for a while, but then, unable to hide for too long, it revealed itself. At first, Audrey only saw its blurry silhouette, but soon it took on a clear shape. Illuminated by the distant, faint light of the torch, the creature appeared before her in all of its glory. Oh, look at that, I was right! A siren! God damn, I'm good at this shit! I'm a huge supernatural buff, leave me alone. Fel appeared beside her as if from out of nowhere, snapping her out of the daze. She grabbed the evaluator by the waist, pulled her up away from the terrifying creature. A moment later, Audrey was able to take a full breath. You shared your concerns with your colleagues. Fel was ready to save you. Audrey climbed onto the rocky shore. She immediately rushed to David. There's a siren in the water. A real siren. God! David wasn't as terrified as she was. Instead, he let out a long groan and rolled his eyes. Oh no. Not those nasty creatures. It seems there's only one of them. Fel climbed out next and wrung out her hair. Should we dive together? Well, if you want to wrestle with the slippery creature at the bottom first, I can wait. I'll give you some time. David's expressed his opinion with an exceptional sour expression. Ooh, Fel. Oh, I get it. Yeah, because, him and... It's a woman. I get it. Are you really going back in the water? Well, we could just stay and live in this cave. The first mate had been silently stunned the whole time. He finally spoke up. Also, how did he not have a draw to the cave? Are you serious, a siren? What the hell? You're a sailor, don't you believe in sirens? The look on the man's face showed how much he doubted David's sanity. Listen, it's clear that people we're looking for aren't here. We can swim back. No one stopped the man, but what did stop him from making a fatal mistake was the face that slowly emerged above the surface of the water. Yeah, no, you're distasteful. Close your mouth. Get back against the wall, Andre. She backed away obediently, watching horror as her colleagues dive back into the water and disappeared after the siren. A heavy silence descended over the cave. Even the first mate stepped back from the edge of the shore and fell silent. What if they don't come back? We had this talk. They're immortal beings. Icy cold gripped her limbs. Audrey imagined an hour passing. 2, 24. How'd she even try to get back to the ship? But as soon as they approached the water, the creature's face would appear. Like a vulture, the siren would wait. It would wait for the desire to escape to outweigh the fear, for dehydration to make her dizzy, for drowning to no longer seem like such a terrible death. Why are they taking so long? Finally, the water churned and thrashed wildly. The siren beat its long tail against the surface. It struggled to free itself from the fragile Fel's iron grip. David grimaced in disgust and held it down. He gripped its neck and pressed the creature's head against him. Are they dragging it here? Audrey pressed her back against the wall. She suddenly realized just how little space there was in the grotto. The siren was sprawled on the shore. Its tail alone took up nearly a third of the space. The creature hissed and screamed. It kept trying to sink its teeth into David's neck, but he held it tightly. Fel finally released the creature's tail. She swore and approached its head. You don't belong here, and we can't send you back. Sorry. Sensing something, the creature thrashed harder. The hissing turned into a long, painful wail. Are they gonna kill it? No? It's the right thing to do. I don't know. I'll just go with no. Isn't there another way? I mean, we can settle it somewhere in this world? Audrey, don't be ridiculous. If the siren ends up in human hands, they'll cut it into pieces, inch by inch. A quick death is its best option. Belle shoved her hands in the siren's mouth. She grabbed its upper jaw with one hand and its lower with the other. Blood began to flow down her arms. It was clearly her own, but she paid no attention to the pain. Slowly, and with a sickening sound, the creature's flesh, tendons, and then bones tore apart. The siren's torn jaw dangled from a thin strip of skin. But the creature kept hissing. It was unclear if it was cursing or in just pain. It writhed, blade scratched at the stones, trying to claw back into the water, but Fell held it firmly by its long, scaly tail. Good thing it only managed to eat 5, and no one made a fuss. The first mate mumbled something incoherent and tried to voice his opinion, but the shock had rendered him speechless. The poor man couldn't take his eyes off the siren. His own jaw had dropped. A thin stream of drool was trickling down his chin. We should snap him out of it. Finish it, Fell. Fell dragged the siren to the center of the cave and let it go. She began to flex and unflex her fingers. As she warmed up, the creature tried to crawl away again, but Fell wouldn't let it. She stretched her hand out. Fell's skin began to pulse with red light as if molten lava was flowing beneath it. Then suddenly the creature burst into flames. It was as if it was made entirely of dry twigs. The cave was filled with bright light and inhuman screams. Audrey could not watch the creature writhe in agony. She turned away. She covered her nose with her hand to block out the suffocating stench of burnt fish and scorched human flesh. Audrey stared blankly at the wall and tried to suppress her gag reflex. She didn't notice the etchings at first. There was a message on the stone surface. It was scratched out in nervous, jagged handwriting. It's in the water. We can't get out. So they really were in this cave. Or was it someone else? Someone no one even bothered to look for. Within seconds, all that was left of the siren was black ash. The fire went out. The lighting changed and returned to the dim attempts of flashlights to illuminate the small space. David's expression was one of displeasure. He tried to wash the stench off his hands, but the sea water didn't help much. Great. We can swim back. Audrey glanced cautiously at the terrified first mate. He clearly wasn't planning on reacting to anything. He sat motionless, staring ahead. He seemed to have stopped blinking. Oh, really? So sailors don't dream of seeing a mermaid after all? Yeah, there's mermaid and then there's that. Even if they do, wanting it and seeing it are two different things. Can he swim? The man couldn't even close his mouth or wipe the drool away. Looks like we won't have to erase his memory after all. David finally smiled. He walked towards the water. All right, let's go. We'll tell the captain that the first mate stayed here, and he'll pick him up later. We're leaving him? Yes. No! But we'll tell the captain where he is. Audrey pushed David lightly on the shoulder and frowned. Sometimes I'm just really amazed at your humanity, honestly. What if he falls in the water and drowns? It was clear that her words didn't affect her colleagues in the least. Fell was the first to give in. She had apparently decided that it would be easier to just take the man with him than to convince Audrey to leave him behind. I'll take him. I'll swim so fast that he won't have time to drown. She grabbed the man by the scruff like a kitten and dragged him to the water. Now you. Audrey glanced at the water. Suddenly she was afraid, too. Are you sure that there aren't any more of those creatures down there? I'm sure, Audrey. Do you trust me? Listen, a minute ago you couldn't even sense anything. Seems us flawed humans have a benefit after all. Audrey nodded uncertainly and stepped towards him. If you're scared, I can help you swim the distance. Should I agree? Please help me. Then close your eyes, Audrey. She obeyed willingly, felt goosebumps spread over her skin. Fear turned to excited anticipation, and David didn't disappoint. His lips brushed against her temple with a gentle, weightless touch. David kissed her cheekbones, her cheeks, her eyelids. He wasn't trying to ignite feelings in her, he was trying to calm them. He caught the drops of water trickling down her face with his lips. He kissed away her fears and worries. I'll rid you of everything and everyone. Just say the word. Audrey longed for a drop to touch her lips, but it betrayed her and slipped lower. David kissed her chin. Come on. Ask him? Or kiss him? Ask him. Audrey tilted her chin up slightly. She spoke softly as she exhaled. David. David slid his fingers down her neck. He gave in and pulled her close. He covered her lips with his, so sweetly that Audrey felt a greedy desire to taste him. But David held back and kept his lips closed. He enjoyed the tenderness she gave him. He didn't seek more, and only God knew how hard it was for him. It doesn't matter what anyone else says about him. He would never hurt me. And for a moment there was a flash of sharp, agonizing satisfaction deep inside of her. Audrey remembered what Fell said. She wanted to lose herself even more in David's arms. Here's someone who isn't afraid of their feelings, Fell. Here's someone I'd happily give all my feelings to, since you don't need them. Oh, will you stop thinking of other people during a kiss? Audrey pressed herself against him so hard that she felt the cold metal of his piercing, the only cool part of him. David's skin burned, warming every cell in her body with his tight embrace. Audrey pulled away and looked into his eyes, shy and all apologetic. You'll fail the test because of me, I'm sorry. His mischievous smile made it clear that he wasn't upset. It spoke louder than any words. I didn't stand a chance, Audrey. I knew that the moment I saw you in Mikhail's office, the moment I looked into your eyes. Reckless. What punishment awaits you? He allowed his fingertips to glide along her neck. He lifted her chin and whispered against her lips. No punishment in this world, Audrey, can compare to the torture of not touching you, of seeing you and not kissing you. Audrey had no idea that he was so capable of such tenderness. She dissolved into the kiss, as did everything around her. Everything disappeared. The outline of the grotto, the ashes underfoot. If you want to, there won't be anyone around. Just you and me, Audrey. Audrey was entranced by his words. She was ready to stay with him forever in this damn cave. David, well aware of the power he had over her, interrupted her sincere speech. Close your eyes. Don't think about anything. His whisper enveloped her. The scent of mint replaced the smell of burnt flesh, banishing all the horrors. His hands roamed over her back, soothing her, never going too far. And though his heart beat wildly, all his movements were smooth, gentle, they were almost chaste. He could have passed for innocence itself right now, if not for his quickened breath burning her skin, if not for his voice, slightly hoarse, hiding so many unspoken desires. Are you ready to go with me? Without opening her eyes, she whispered, Anywhere. David backed towards the water and pulled her along, never breaking their embrace. Audrey felt the water rise with each step. It slid over her calves, thighs, trying to engulf her again, but there was no room left. No room left for anything but David and his warmth. And there was no room for fear. He had to tell the captain and the first mate had gotten caught on a ledge in the cave and nearly drowned. The man hardly believed it, but he believed in the curse even more. To avoid more victims, he promised to burn the ship to free the souls of the missing crew, and never to endanger other poor souls again. The Astrians didn't know how to react. They simply agreed. They didn't stay long. They said goodbye to the sea that had stirred their hearts and went home. Somnus and Furious weren't in Astrea, so Audrey kept all her impressions of the assignment to herself. David had no intention of going to them anyway. He said right on the doorstep that a hot bath was more important to him right now. The women agreed with his idea and went their separate ways as well. Before going to her room, Audrey decided to take a walk to the garden. She visited her wolf and collected her thoughts. The garden no longer seemed frightening. When she heard a rustle, she turned instinctively towards it. Cassiel came to the statue of Astrea with his own hidden past, well concealed from prying eyes. You usually sneak up on me without a sound. I knew you were here, daydreaming as always. I was trying to get your attention so you wouldn't clutch your heart again. Oh, well, thank you. Audrey was genuinely touched by his concern. She moved aside, inviting him to sit beside her on the bench. He came closer, but didn't sit down. I heard Somnus sent you to a siren. Is that true? Yes. Have you ever seen one? Yes, once. It wasn't a very interesting story. An interesting story about a real siren. Alright, go on with your story. Tell me about it. Why? You'll have nightmares. Cassiel continued to surprise her with his unintrusive care. He looked at her as if she were a fickle child. A Phil literally tore the creature's mouth apart right in front of me, and then burned it alive. I'm going to have nightmares anyway. Your silence won't save me. Alright, just one story. Cassiel dug through the depths of his memory, and he spoke slowly. I was still a child when I crashed into a flying island during a flight. A flying island? Just one story, Audrey. No more questions. Audrey fell silent at her heavy, stern gaze. She quickly covered her mouth with her hand. My wings hadn't finished regenerating, and I fell into the water. The sirens attacked me almost immediately. There were too many, and I was too small. They dragged me to the bottom in less than a minute. Cassiel fell sadly silent. Audrey slowly lowered her hand from her face. She waited for a few seconds, and then whispered softly, It sounds like the story ended and you died. No, I didn't. They drowned me all night long. What do you mean? Sirens can't kill an immortal, and their charms don't work on us. They hunt more primitive creatures, animals, and humans. I was choking on water, fighting back until my older sister found me. She sensed me, even through the depths of the water. She helped me break free. Cassiel glanced at the statue and fell silent again. His sister is buried here. Audrey tried not to give herself away. She smiled warmly. I can only imagine what you look like. Cassiel didn't take the joke well. His answer was so frank that it completely dispelled the humor. Like a drowned person, what else? I was underwater for so long. That was the end of his story. Wow! Riveting shit. Seriously? Well, that's a cautionary tale, thanks. He nodded and gave her a tired smile. Anyway, I've got something for you. Cassiel's a man of very few words. Cassiel had been holding some sort of amulet in his fist the whole time. Now it lay on his outstretched palm. I don't like the game that Somnus is playing. I don't like that he's putting you in danger. And until we solve this problem, promise me you'll wear this amulet, please. In front of you is an amulet. Take a look. Interesting. Audrey looked at the trinket warily, and she asked, How will it help? When there's danger near you, the amulet will start to heat up. Just a little at first, but the closer the danger gets, the hotter it will burn. Sounds like a game where you say warmer as you get closer to the object you're looking for. Yes, but if this amulet activates, you need to run. Do you hear me? If none of us are around, run. Don't think. Don't try to find the source. Got it? Yeah, but what happens if you're running in the wrong direction? Audrey saw guilt in Cassiel's eyes. Is he torturing himself over what happened to me in the village? But is it really his fault? Alright, ask him to help you put on the amulet. Got it. Will you help me put it on? Cassiel moved behind her and paused for a moment. He didn't move her hair out of the way. He tugged the chain so tight that Audrey almost stopped breathing. I should have done it myself. Luckily, he took care of it quickly, so she didn't have time to suffocate. Wait, how do I even feel about that? Like, if he held on any tighter, he could have killed her. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm going inside. I suggest you get some rest as well. Cassiel gave her a parentally stern look and then walked slowly towards the house. Audrey sat for a while longer before finally feeling a long-awaited drowsiness. She was sure that tonight's nightmare would come to her in the form of a siren with a torn mouth. Maybe the creature would drag her underwater. Maybe she'd find herself in the cave in total darkness, utter loneliness, alone with the realization that death awaited her in the water. But even such grim thoughts couldn't rob the exhausted evaluator of the desire to sleep. I'm ready to fight monsters all night, as long as I don't dream of my father. No cult, no damn beast. Audrey closed her eyes. She deliberately thought of the sea. She fell asleep, lulled by the memory of its waves. But that wasn't what she dreamed of. The same familiar dream repeated itself, the same room, the same hand on her shoulder, the same fear. Audrey waited for the door to reappear in the wall. She felt like she was burning from the inside. The unbearable heat radiated from her heart and spread over her skin. Audrey whimpered softly. She clutched at her nightgown as if she wanted to rip out the painful organ. Her father's concise speech didn't go as planned. What is that? What is this devilish instrument, Audrey? Why did you bring it into our home? Audrey didn't understand what he meant. She scratched at her skin. She wanted only one thing to get rid of the heat. It's the necklace. Her father's hand reached for her chest to tear out the burning heart. Only then did she wake up. God, what kind of dream was that? The amulet saved you. So the evil was literally right there. It wasn't just a dream. Audrey was drenched in sweat. Her subconsciously touched her chest and immediately pulled her hand away. The amulet Cassiel had given her burned unbearably. Oh, then no, really? 5 stars. And so we gained 4 faith, 0 skepticism, 3 reputation, and oh look, diamonds. Alright, so the next episode is currently up. Evil can be very persuasive. Without further ado, hopefully you all did enjoy it. Oh, and I really mean that. Seriously, my voice is a little rough today, and my back hurts, but here I sat and I did it, so again, please show your appreciation. Especially because I don't think any of you guys ever realize, like seriously, this is what I want you to do. I want you to sit there for the next hour, do nothing but read. No drinks. Okay, I'll allow you to sip here and there, but listen, seriously, you have to keep reading, you have to keep talking. And you have to do it for an hour, minimum. You have to keep doing it. And then, so if you ask any voice actor, right, there's typically a lot of voice actors who only do one specific voice, right? They lock in on that voice. I'm sitting here and I'm having to do, like, what, 6 minimum voices per chapter / episode. So it's I don't think people realize how actual difficulty that is, actually. To lock in on a voice and then quickly switch up. So you're talking like me right now. I'm narrating, da-da-da-da-da, and then suddenly we talk like this. Or we go over here like that. It's actually very you're actually having to shift up the muscles in your voice box. And so it's actually very hard to keep doing that. And so it takes its toll, especially for these episodes are super, super long. So that's one of the reasons why I don't get them out as much and often. Also, here we are, we're slowly, broaching from, we were doing a lot of other types of stuff to, here RC came along for us and we're like, okay, this is interesting. We're going to, kind of test the waters, and then people are showing interest. So we're going to increase it, and slowly kind of make a shift, right? And I'm still kind of making that shift. I don't want to completely drop something that we've established on this channel for 7 years, right? We've done choices for 7 years. Yes, in the past I did chapters, but that was something that, again, I didn't fully jump on chapters as well, if people remember that. Now, if you're new to this channel, don't worry about it. It's just something that I'm trying to make the shift. And again, these chapters and these episodes are very lengthy. I'm going to be honest with you. I was actually going over the numbers on stream the other day, and it was like, you can fit 2 to 3 choices, chapters in one episode of Romance Club. So people who are like, Romance Club needs to put out content more often. Listen, dude, or dudette. I don't think you realize the quality you're getting. It's not about the quantity, fam. It's about the quality. And I can't give RC enough credit. Their artwork, their storytelling, they hardly ever have a grammatical error. They actually proofread their shit for the most part. I mean, I think maybe on one hand I can count how many times they've had an issue that I've called them out on the time that I've covered their stuff. So they actually do a really great, solid job. And they make sure to hammer things out for a solid, month, if not longer, before they publish the content. And that is actually something that you should be cherishing. That's something that should be really just... There's not a lot of that going on right now, I'm going to be honest with you. As a person who, my whole channel is covering game content and reading these stories. And if I'm saying that, I'm giving them high praise. Something that I used to give PB before, they went downhill and a lot of writers left. And now it's, no. Anyway, so yeah, without further ado, stay tuned for more episodes. A little bit of patience, just like we do with RC. But also there's a Diamond Rush coming this weekend, so I'll make sure to put out a couple more episodes, especially of this. I think there's only one more episode anyway, so we'll see. But otherwise, thank you all for watching. Love your beautiful faces, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out.